Good morning and welcome back to my daily Transcontinental Race coverage. This is day 5. Let's head over to the tracker and see what's been happening. And well, there's no real change in terms of the leaders. So Christof Strasser and Robin Gemperle continue to head the field by quite a margin now. And they're heading through the centre of Bosnia as we speak. Looks like Christoph's a little bit ahead at the moment. I'd make that gap probably around 10 miles or so, which at this stage of the race still isn't massive. I suspect if we see that gap kind of eking out over the next day or so, then that could be something close to being decisive. But there's still some really tough riding, and you know it's not the hardest part yet. Once they get out of Bosnia, I imagine they'll have to go through Macedonia, and then I think the real questions are going to be answered in Albania and Greece on this tough gravel parcour. The roads are really hilly, it's really steep, and it's going to be getting hotter, and obviously tiredness as well. You know, the riders are going to be five or 6 days in by that point, and I think that's where we will start to see the difference being made. But at the moment, you can consider these guys neck and neck. A little bit further up, you can see Marin's still in third place. Again, he's probably got another 10-mile gap over Florian, essentially neck and neck at the moment, and a nice little chasing pack behind them. Same applies to these guys. I think it's really going to shake out once we get past the next checkpoint 3, which is in Albania. That's going to be, I think the whole race is going to shake up. I mean, there is still scope for one of these leaders to crack. They've been pushing each other so hard. So there's a chance that someone from this lead pack could come up. We are beginning to see the different routes as well. So I'll just show the track of Kristof. And there's various different options in this section. Through the Alps, it was kind of pretty predetermined. I'm afraid that my Follow My Challenge has been extremely slow again. But now there's various different options. Now I wouldn't have gone this way personally, although it doesn't mean I'm right. I'll show you on Rider GPS shortly. But it seems at the moment that most riders are heading through the centre of Bosnia and are then going to cut south, probably towards Mostar and then into Albania. I'll dig into the route on Rider GPS because it's just a bit more detailed and a bit quicker. Further down the field, our lead woman, the lead woman on the road is still Sherry Cadrona. She's riding in a pair, and I mean doing a fantastic job. Right in the top 20 there, probably top 15 overall, which is really good going. And our lead woman or lead solo woman is Jamie Wilson. I'll see if I can find her dot. She's currently just been through the second checkpoint. You can see her little brown dot there on the parcours. So she's halfway through the parcours, and then she's got quite a commanding lead now over. There's a bit of a chase pack behind. So Nikki Shaw's in there, and who else is in there? Suzanne Marie Moldhaar, and there is someone else in there as well. But yeah. Like I said, I'm not getting on very well with this tracker. It's very slow and clunky. Before I go any further, I'll just say, if you've been liking these updates, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss them. And I'll also say thank you to Holy Fat, who are sponsoring this and making this coverage possible. So they do a range of nut butters and low carb bars. So the nut butters are particularly good. They're kind of like little energy gel sachets, and you can buy big bulk ones as well, and so you don't have to use the packaging. So yeah, 270 calories, and yeah, great for long steady efforts such as a Transcontinental Race. I usually have a couple of these in my bag just in case. So yeah, really good. Check them out if you're interested, and all the details are below. Let's go over to Ride with GPS and have a little look. And actually, before we do that, I'll just show you the. I took a screenshot because I suspected that we might have some issues with the tracking software. So this was this is the top 20 through the second checkpoint. Interestingly, so the green mark there denotes the first. Well, in the In the left-hand column, this is the first rider to the checkpoint. And then the green in this column is actually the fastest time. So the fastest rider between checkpoint 1 and checkpoint 2 was Robert Muller. So it'd be interesting to see. He's in that little chase pack just behind Marin and Florian. So it'd be interesting to see if he's actually riding faster, or maybe he just stopped less before that checkpoint. But he did it quite a bit faster, 28 hours, 24 minutes. And the two leaders were 31 and a half, 32 hours. So that's like 3.5, 4 hours. That could be a sleep overnight, but it could just be that, you know, he's coming into his own. If you listen to the Transcontinental Race podcast, which I would thoroughly recommend, it's actually, you know, they've got on the ground kind of updates. I'm obviously doing this from what I can garner off everyone else's sources, but yeah, they were speaking to Robert, and he was really struggling in the mountains, but he's got some pedigree in these races. He's won the Trans-Pyrenees. And he beat Christof Strasser in the Bihard ultra race in Bosnia earlier this year. So he knows what he's doing. So maybe just keep an eye on him over the coming days. But yeah, you can see the top 10, they're all in there. And yeah, it's starting to fill out quite nicely. So let's have a little look at the route now. Back on Ride with GPS, and this is the route that I'd kind of planned, looking at the parcours. And now the reason most of the riders seem to have gone straight through Bosnia. So what I'll do is, if I've got the terrain on, you can see it's kind of a big flat bit here between Zagreb and then a big sort of valley in towards Sarajevo. But I decided to go further south, primarily because I'm quite familiar with Croatia. I've ridden through there 2 or 3 times before. And you've got to cross these hills somewhere, so I kind of decided to cross further up. I suspect they've got a slightly flatter route further north, but if I go to the heat maps on Ride with GPS, this is quite a good tool actually. Basically, everyone who's uploaded onto Ride with GPS, it shows the where they've ridden. And as you can see, I mean, when you go further north, there's just rides everywhere, but further south here, I suspect a lot of these long lines you see on the route are probably riders from the Transcontinental Race over the last few years. So it looks like the lead riders are kind of heading down. You can see roughly highlighted through here. So you can see some more obvious routes in towards Sarajevo. Then I suspect they'll probably end up following through these mountains here. You can see quite a few people have ridden it before, so that kind of would make sense to do. I decided, well, when I was planning, I decided to go down through Croatia. Again, I'm quite familiar with it, just because, you know, I feel like familiarity is a big part of route planning on these things, and if you know what's coming, it does help. So the 2 TCRs I did, 2014, I ended up riding all the way down the coast of Croatia, and the checkpoint was in Kotor Bay, which is just down here somewhere. Where are we? Kotor. So there's quite a cool climb out the back of Kotor. And the second year, 2015, the year I won it, again the checkpoint was in Kotor. But the checkpoint prior was somewhere over here in Croatia. So I had to cross through Bosnia, and then essentially I just tried to pick up exactly the same route as I did in the previous year, 2014. So I knew exactly what was coming. So from the last checkpoint all the way to Istanbul, because that's where the race finished then, I took exactly the same route, and I kind of, so I knew where the towns were, where the resupply were, and things like that. So familiarity is important, and Kristof has raced the Bihard Ultra Race in Bosnia earlier this year, so again he's going to be fairly familiar. And he said in one of his stories actually on Instagram, you know, he lives very close to the checkpoint he lives near Graz in Austria, so he was familiar with that. So again, familiarity goes a long way. So we've got a few options through this region. I suspect, it seems to me quite a lot of people are going for the flatter bit through the top here and then through Bosnia. Personally, I probably would have gone through Croatia, as I said, and then we are heading in. They'll have to cross through Montenegro and then into Albania. Now there's a lot of banned roads around this area, so it's a bit of a needle to thread, and I think we'll find that the flattest route is going to be this one here, going through Skoda, crossing further north, and then this E762 is a banned road, and there's some banned tunnels through here. So effectively it's forcing the riders up through the mountains and then to the checkpoint in Burrell. Now I suspect it's going to be another 24 hours or so before the leaders get there, so we'll touch on the checkpoint a bit more when they do arrive. But yeah, route options are going to be interesting. You'll see them riders diverge, come back on again, but essentially they're going to the same place. So much like on the first day heading down from Geeradsbergen, the riders will end up funneling together. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting to see how it goes. Now I did have a few questions on the comments, so do feel free to comment if you've got any questions about the cutoffs on the checkpoints. So the first checkpoint in Livigno is now basically the checkpoint is closed. So someone was saying they didn't know where to find that information. So all the riders get this race manual, and it's got all the information you'll need about the race, all the checkpoints, everything that you would probably need to know if you were going to take part. And in here it also tells you the control opening times. So the first checkpoint, the cutoff was, well, it's actually 7 o'clock yesterday evening. However, there was a message put out by the race organisation on Instagram, on various channels towards the riders, that the control would be extended until midnight. Now I suspect that was because there was lots of bad weather, but effectively anyone who's now not reached that control point they're not necessarily out of the race. They can continue on, but there'll be no one there to stamp their brevet card. They'll have to self-validate. Now I suspect, as this was at a hotel, so Hotel Allegro, as you can see here, I suspect they'll leave a stamp there and riders can just stamp it as proof they've been there. But it does mean that if you don't get through the controls within the allotted time, then you won't feature in the overall results. However, you can still carry on and finish the race. But the reason they do this is obviously people have to man these checkpoints, and they have to draw a line somewhere. And they're normally fairly kind of they're fairly generous with the timings. However, it is a race, so there's got to be a cut-off somewhere. So that is what's going to be happening there at that checkpoint now. So anyone who's not made it is now effectively kind of out of the classification. So that's kind of the update for now. I'll go over to Instagram and see if we can put some kind of life onto the dots. So this was Nikki Shaw. So I think she's about third or fourth. There's basically in the race for second in the women's competition at the moment. So yeah, just a bit of an idea of what's going on. So electronic updates. So the phone not charging, and dynamo charger not working. So that can be an issue for navigation. Obviously, you rely on a GPS to know exactly where you're going. So quite often, if you do have issues like this, your number one thing to worry about is getting your GPS charged up. I've had the issues myself in these races, and I think my first TCR I had no end of GPS issues, and it is quite stressful. So yeah, obviously sometimes you just need to sit down and have a bit of a break. It looks like that's what Nikki's doing here, and actually I've been in touch with her this morning. She sent me a message. I was hoping to get a voice update, but she said she's got no battery on her phone, but she stayed in a hotel overnight and things are starting to dry out. I think she had a bit of a bad mental spot yesterday, but she sounded a bit more positive this morning. So yeah, it's amazing what a meal and a dry bed does. But look at that, what a treat, riding through the mountains at dawn. Doesn't get much better than that. And this is the life of an ultra racer. So yeah, that is probably the diet, and that's probably the location for eating. Most of these riders will be just sat at the side of the road for the vast majority of their meals for the next few weeks. Yeah, it's not a glamorous life. So yeah, that is Nikki, and she's doing a good job. Who else have we got? Jamie Wilson. So obviously leading the solo women's field. Basically no updates because the batteries are low. So I suspect she's having a similar issue. I mean, maybe I suspect the weather has been terrible, and there's only so much you can keep water out of these bike bags. There's only so much that putting stuff in a plastic bag actually works. So I suspect, again, chargers, battery banks, they all take a bit of a hammering, and it doesn't strike me that Jamie's really stayed in any hotels or anything yet. So she's just cracking on, doing her thing, and hopefully we'll hear from her at the finish. But in the meantime, no updates from her. Who else have we got? Christof Strasser, obviously leading the race at the moment, and basically this is firstly a nice little link up to the Transcontinental Race podcast, which is well worth a listen, as I've already said. But yeah, this is the gravel on the parcours. So as I suspected in the previous kind of roundups I've done, the gravel's not too bad here. It's just basically a nice smooth gravel road, so that shouldn't pose too much of an issue for most of the races. Not like stuff I suspect further south. I suspect there'll be a few more rocks involved once they get to Albania. But yeah, Kristof doing a good job. He also put on a nice little story the other day. So let's just, I quite like Kristof. He's good at his media, and he's quite open with his updates. So let's just see what Kristof said. So this would have been this morning.
The Bosnian hills. The race is going very good so far, and I was sleeping tonight in Banja Luka and started a bit earlier so that I can tackle these hills fresh and recovered. And the race is still very tight. Robin and me are very close together in the front, but also Marine, Florian and Robert are not so far behind, so they can still catch up with us, especially if we have maybe some problems or slow down. So the most important thing still is not to give all your energy, save some energy for the last bit, eat enough, drink enough, sleep enough, take care, not push too hard, and of course enjoy the race.
So yeah, some interesting thoughts from Kristof there. So he's saving a bit back. This guy, he knows what he's doing with his endurance races. It might only be his second season of doing unsupported, but we'll just look at the top of his profile here. This tells you everything you need to know. 6 times winner of the race across America, 4 times race around Austria winner, race around the Alps winner, and 24-hour record holder doing 1,026 kilometers in 24 hours. So he knows what he's talking about. I think we're going to see a strong finish from him. We did last year when he won it. He wasn't leading until the last sort of quarter of the race, really. So yeah, keep an eye on Kristof. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. Has he now got that gap over Robin? Is that going to start growing? Or, we know Robin has been sleeping quite a lot, and he's probably going to cut back a bit in the next few days. So we could have a real sort of a sprint on our hands. The only final thing for today is just check out the Transcontinental Race Instagram. They've got some amazing photographers out on the road, bringing really, really nice images. So yeah, well, I'll just flick through a few here. So this is obviously someone at the checkpoint. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Transcontinental Race, everyone has a brevet card, which is this here. And at each checkpoint you get a stamp, and then once you've got all your stamps at the finish, then you've officially finished the Transcontinental Race. So that is a rider handing over their brevet card to get stamped to the team of volunteers. There's volunteers at each checkpoint, and the Transcontinental Race actually relies a lot on volunteers. So good job to everyone who has volunteered to do that. And yeah, food in bags. It's a theme of Transcontinental Race. Some nice cherries there. This is a method I was quite keen. A bit of bungee on the front of the aero bars. You can get all sorts in there. I think I could get 3 or 4 7-day croissants in mine when I use that method. This looks like Robert Muller coming into the checkpoint there. Tired riders on the floor of a checkpoint. That's another standard photo, as is a coffee and a Coca-Cola, and it's like a load of chocolates or whatever. It's, you know, double coffees, coffee and Coke, double caffeine. It's all normal in the life of Transcontinental Race rider. And look at those roads, amazing. This looks like it's the checkpoint up there in Slovenia, really beautiful. And yeah, more tired riders everywhere. That's Sherry and her pair's partner, I can't remember his name, sorry about that, turning up at the checkpoint. Yeah, tired riders, lots of food, and this looks like the gravel parcours. So we saw that photo on Kristof Strasser's Instagram post just now. It doesn't look like anything to worry about at this point, but the riders don't need to worry. There will be plenty of gravel for them to bounce over on their road bikes very soon. So yeah, that's all I've got for today. We'll see you again tomorrow for my next update. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already and you don't want to miss out. And thanks for watching. Any questions, just put them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them, and I'll see you again in the morning.